When we mention Tekken, which title is the first one that comes to mind? Or if we are discussing Mortal Kombat, which reboot is the best? On the Street Fighter side of things, is Street Fighter 2 the best one, or is it Third Strike? We've been thinking about these questions, and since most major franchises have cycled through at least one generation by now, we want to share our thoughts on why we believe these are the best entries in their respective series in today's DashFight video. The Street Fighter series gives us many choices for its best representative, but we've gone with Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. Near the turn of the millennium, Capcom released the top 3 fighting game of all time. Third Strike provides compelling gameplay at every level of skill. The most obvious way it does this is through the parry mechanic. With a basic understanding of it and some practice, you can parry fairly often, which helps you stay alive and in the fight. As you improve, you get a sense of when you should parry versus maintaining distance with footsies and dashes, because over-reliance on parrying makes you vulnerable to throws, creating a balance between all-out defense and offense. Going further and becoming proficient in parries allows you to pull off red parries, bypassing block stun and creating new opportunities to punish your opponent, which turns that defense into offense. This is the tug of war that makes Third Strike shine, a risk and reward decision-making gameplay loop with rising stakes. These mechanics were also accompanied by smaller adjustments like super selection and universal overheads, which played a complementary role in the overall balance of the game. Some were entirely new, like the universal overheads, while most were improvements on the base SF3 experience. Combine all of these improvements with a diverse roster of characters, each providing various ways to engage with those systems, and the result is a fighting game that continually offers potential solutions for every matchup. Some solutions are quite universal, like the parry, while others demand more consideration based on the character you're playing and the one your opponent is using. For example, Q is considered a relatively low-tier character that focuses on defensive play, and is at a significant disadvantage on paper against Ken. However, if a Q player has a solid understanding of the parry mechanic and effectively utilizes Q's damage reduction taunts, they can extend the game long enough to punish Ken's mistakes. On the other side, a character like Makoto, who is considered more of an even match, is able to put a lot of pressure on him with her unique command grab, Karakusa, putting him at a constant threat of getting stunned, which would result in strong combos for a chunk of his health. Both of these characters have access to parries to deal with Ken, but they also layer their own solutions on top of that, to varying degrees of success. In that sense, while Third Strike's roster is not perfectly balanced, it still manages to capture a form of asymmetric balance, with its characters that great players can find success with. Just ask Hayao, who had an incredible performance at EVO 2024 playing Hugo, the character that many would put in the bottom 5 or close to it. Tekken 5 Dark Resurrection is likely the closest to a foundational pick in this video, because more than any other title, it shaped the community's perception of what an entry in this franchise should be, top to bottom. This is in part because Tekken 4 faced heavy criticism, resulting in rollbacks to the well-liked elements from Tekken 3, such as flat stages and the general speed of fights. In a way, Tekken 3's core design peaked with this installment. Sidestep opportunities, juggling potential, damage output, taking throws, and more contributed to a roster that could exploit each other's weaknesses. For instance, Steve can evade and punish many of Law's high dominance strings using his weave and counter hit tools. But Law's faster, lows and simple jab pressure can disrupt Steve's rhythm. Tekken 5 also came with its own improvements, changes to combos and juggles. The combo scaling system reinforced gameplay choices between pursuing a wall carry or settling for added damage, shifting focus towards individual character matchups. Tekken 5 Dark Resurrection solidified these ideas even further. Adjusting its balance meant that this was the version of Tekken to which millions would become accustomed to, creating a foundation for competitive play that would prove strong for years to come, a rightfully called legacy title. In the recent years, the Tekken team has experimented with these core concepts, adding Rage and most recently Heat. However, they all pivot and are bound by what Dark Resurrection established. Mortal Kombat has experienced 3 reboots, with the 2011 edition, most commonly referred to as Mortal Kombat 9, standing out as the most important. This was the franchise's glorious return as a 2D fighter after years of testing the 3D space. This entry in the franchise helped to bring together previously disjointed elements in its gameplay. For instance, the Armageddon-style breakaway stock was now folded into the full EX meter, which contained special attacks as well as the level 3 gory X-ray move that would become a staple of the series going forward. Other notable changes included features like dash blocking and dash cancelling, which opened up a new dimension for movement in the game. Outside of gameplay, Mortal Kombat 9 truly impressed people with its varied content and modes. The challenge towers were now 300 levels long, and the crypt was expanded to be better and flashier than ever before. There was also the experimental inclusion of a tag team mode that, although rough around the edges, proved to be a fun addition. But above all else, after a decade of mainline titles and spin-offs, Mortal Kombat 9 successfully retold the events of the original trilogy, with full cutscenes, animations, and a near movie-like quality for the time. It featured just enough retcons to allow for some of the new backstories of characters and their overall arcs to shine, like Sector's and Cyrax's disputes or Quan Chi's influence on the tournament from the start. It all helped to make the series feel more like a cohesive universe. MK9 preserved the franchise's violent spirit while incorporating mechanics that appealed to both casuals and competitive players, the latter of which flourished massively thanks to this game. Although it may not have had the most balanced roster or the highest sales figures, its influence on the series as a whole and on NetherRealm Studios specifically is impossible to overstate. Super Smash Bros. Melee launched in late 2001. It became the GameCube's best-selling title with over 7 million sales and won numerous Game of the Year awards. Why? Well, because it's a plain fun fighting game. Melee is not just a series-defining title though, it's a genre-defining one for platform fighters. The game's pace is nearly 30% faster than the N64 original, and it features many advanced mechanics that players quickly discovered and exploited. For example, wave dashing, which is air dodging diagonally into the ground in a way that allows a character to become grounded instantly. At the same time, there is L cancelling, pressing the LR button on landing, which halves the landing lag of aerial attacks for a faster recovery. These techs enhanced Melee's movement options. A Fox player might perform a short hop into the air, then L cancel on landing to dash away or jab, meaning they could keep up the pressure if needed. Over time, these became standard, as top players routinely used slide dashes and performed aerial combos reliant on L cancel recoveries. As the competitive scene grew, many techniques were improved, introducing new ideas, combinations, strategies, and even controller modifications. It's difficult to determine whether Shigeru Miyamoto and the team at Nintendo intended these to be fully utilized as they are today, since they were just aiming to develop a party game, not a competitive title. But regardless, they ended up with interesting and deep interactions between characters and the engine. However, for millions of players who were not engaged in the high-octane action of the competitive scene, Melee was still a 10 out of 10 party game, just as Nintendo wanted. It was in college dorms and at a friend's house. It was a game that anyone could pick up and play. This highlights how great games and franchises often begin. A considerable amount of talent and thought contributes to these titles for sure, but they also need a dose of luck, an on-ramp for new players, and some classic video game jank to give them character. Naturally, there will be picks that you don't agree with, and there is a whole comment section down below for you to tell us why. But more importantly, you can also share which entries are your favorites. Not just from the franchises in this video, but from all series and fighting games. Maybe you have strong opinions about Guilty Gear, or maybe one for the King of Fighters, or even Fatal Fury. So go ahead and tell us what your picks are. Right between the ongoing discussion of Xrd vs Strive, and of course the Tekken guys are gonna have their own opinions too, and of course Street Fighter Alpha 2 should have been the pick according to some.